Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful and exciting session of Grammar Live with me, Alexander. I trust you had a great weekend and so far your week has been fruitful. As always, I would like to use this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for making time to follow this particular or this wonderful program of Grammar Live. And again, I want to encourage you to share the links with your friends, your families, invite them to participate, send in your comments, your questions, and your contributions. And I'll gladly reply to all your questions and to your comments. So as before we go into today's activity, I would like to encourage you to share the links with your friends, invite them in, tell them Grammar Life is on. Let them participate, let them join and benefit and enjoy whatever that the benefit that you are deriving from watching and listening to this wonderful program of Grammar Life. So I also entreat you to share the links with your friends, share with your families, share with everyone that you think needs to learn this or hear from of this important program. So share the links with them. And again, I would like to thank you again for always making it possible, staying in tune with me from the beginning of this program to today. Thank you so much. And I'm very grateful to all of you. So before we proceed, as always, let's share the links with our friends. Let's invite them in. Let's keep our comments, our questions, our contributions coming. Okay. So as a way of recap, we will look at what we did last week. Now, last week we talked about the present continuous. We talked about the present continuous. And what we said was that we said the present continuous describes something which is happening at the exact moment of speech. So if you want to describe or talk about an activity that is happening at the exact moment of speech, we use the present continuous to describe such an activity. So we looked at an example to be David is watching TV at the moment. David is watching TV at the moment. So meaning that as at the exact moment of speech, David is watching television. Again, we say the present continuous tense is used to describe an action that is taking place now, but not at the exact moment of speech. An action that is happening or taking place now, but not at the exact moment of speech, would describe such an action or event with the present continuous tense. And then we say an example is Mariam is working in Mali. So as at the time that I'm speaking, Mariam is working in Mali, but it is not at the exact moment of speech. Again, we said the present continuous is used to describe an event planned in the future. And usually, in formal events planned in the future, we use the present continuous tense to describe or to talk about them. Events planned in the future. Example, I am taking my French class on Tuesday. This is an event that is planned in the future. This is an event that is planned in the future. So in talking about such events, we can use the present continuous tense to talk about such events. Again, we say the present continuous tense is used to describe a temporal situation. So in talking about temporal situations, we use the present continuous tense to talk about such situations, temporal situations. So example, we say John is staying with a friend for a few days. John is staying with a friend for a few days. So this is a temporal situation. And in describing such temporal situations, we use the present continuous tense to describe or to talk about it. Again, we say that to lay emphasis on the frequency of an action, we use the present continuous tense. So if you want to lay an emphasis or on the frequency of an action, we can use or we use the present continuous tense to do that. So for example, we say that child is always crying for no good reason. that child is always crying for no good reason. Here we are laying emphasis on the frequency of the action of the child. That is, the child is always crying. So if you want to lay emphasis on the frequency of an action, we use the present continuous tense to do that. Again, we say the present continuous tense describes changing situations. The present continuous tense is used to describe changing situations. So when situations change from one stage to another, and you want to describe such changes, we use the present continuous tense to describe or to talk about such changes. For example, we say her health is improving gradually. Her health is improving gradually. Here, there's a change in the status of her health. There's a change in the status of her health. So it's improving gradually. So in describing changing situations, we use the present continuous tense to talk about that. Now we then look at the formation of the present continuous tense. And we say generally in the formation, we have three forms. That is the positive, the negative, and then the question forms. The positive, negative, and question forms. So we're saying that in forming the positive, we use the subject, and here we say the subject is the one doing the action or the one speaking, plus the auxiliary verb to be in the present tense, that is am, is, and are, plus the verb ending ing. So to form the positive, we use the subject plus the auxiliary verb to be, which am, is, and are, plus the verb ending ing. Now to form the negative, we say we use the subject plus auxiliary verb is, plus not, plus verb ending ing. Negative subject plus am, is, or are, plus not, plus verb ing. And to form the question, we use the auxiliary verb to be, which is am, is, are, plus the subject, plus the verb ending ing. So that is how we form the three main forms of the present continuous tense. And then we saying that, or I said last week that the key element in forming the present continuous tense is the use of the auxiliary verb to be. The use of the auxiliary verb to be, more especially am, is, and are. Am, is, and are. Now, that was what we said last week. That was what we said last week. Now, in today's series, we will be talking about the present perfect. We will be talking about the present perfect. The present perfect. That is what we will be talking about, the present perfect. So what is the present perfect? That is what we want to look at. Now, what is the present perfect? Now, remember that when we started with the element of tenses, we said there are two main elements of tenses. That is time and aspect. Again, we said aspect is divided into two, which is the progressive and then the perfective. Remember very well that we said the perfective means completed action or state. Perfective means completed action or state. Keep that in mind. Now, let's come to the present perfect tense. What is the present perfect tense? How do we use it? What is it used for? So the first thing we want to talk about is the present perfect tense is used to express things you have done in your life. Things you have done in your life. Things you have done in your life. So in expressing or in talking about things you have done in your life or things that you have not done in your life, if you want to express or talk about such things, we use the present perfect tense to talk about them. We use the present perfect tense to talk about them. For example, she has never studied Japanese. She has never studied Japanese. So this is something that she has never done in her life. So in expressing things that you have done in your life, we use the present perfect tense to describe or to talk about such events. Now, the key here is that it is not only about things that you have done in your life, but things that you have not done in your life as well, which is going to be in the negative form. In the negative form. So she has never studied Japanese. She has never studied Japanese. That is the first use of the present perfect tense. Again, we say the present perfect tense is used to express the number of times you have done something. In talking about the number of times that you have done something, we use the present perfect tense to describe or to talk about that. For example, how many times have you tried to call her? How many times have you tried to call her? How many times have you tried to call her? Here we are expressing the number of times you have done something. So in describing or in talking about or in expressing the number of times that you have done something, we use the present perfect tense to talk about that. We use the present perfect tense to talk about that. Again, if you want to describe recently completed actions which are important now, if you want to describe recently completed actions which are important now, we use the present perfect tense to talk about it. In describing or in talking about recently completed actions which are important now, we use the present perfect tense to talk about them. For example, I have some bad news. I have some bad news. I have lost my job. I have lost my job. So that is a recently completed action which is important now. A recently completed action which is important now. So in describing or in talking about recently completed actions which are important now, we use the present perfect tense to talk about them. Again, to express situations that started in the past. To express situations that started in the past and are still true, we use the present perfect tense. To express situations that started in the past and are still true, we use the present perfect tense to describe such a situation. For example, I have known James for 4 or 5 years. I have known James for 4 or 5 years. Now, this means that from the past till date, which is still true, I know James. So I have known James for 4 or 5 years now. So for the duration of the 4 or 5 years, I have known James. Now, this is a situation that started in the past and is still true. And is still true, meaning as of the time I'm speaking now, I still know James. So in expressing situations that started in the past and are still true, we use the present perfect tense to describe or to talk about such situations. We use the present perfect tense to describe that. Again, we use the present perfect tense to describe unfinished actions or situations. We use the present perfect tense to describe unfinished actions or situations. We use it to describe unfinished actions or situations. For example, I have read half of the book. I've read half of the book, meaning that I have not completely or I have not finished reading the book. I have not finished reading the book. So in describing unfinished situations or actions, we use the present perfect tense to talk about or to describe such events or such situations. Describing unfinished situations or actions, we use the present perfect tense to talk about them. Again, to express present results, we use the present perfect tense. So if I want to express a result that is present, I mean a present result, I use the present perfect tense to do that. For example, we say John has missed the bus, so he'll be late. John has missed the bus, so he will be late. So this is a present situation. This is a present situation. So in describing present situations, we use the present perfect tense to describe or to talk about that. Now, the bigger question then is, how do we form the present perfect tense? How do we form the present perfect tense? What are the components of the present perfect tense? What are the things that we put together to derive or to come up with the present perfect tense? And remember that we say all tenses are in three forms: the positive, negative, and question forms. Positive, negative, and question forms. So how do we form the positive? How do we form the negative? And how do we form the question? Now, in forming the positive, we use the subject, and here we say the subject is the one speaking or doing the action. The subject can be singular or plural. So in forming the positive, we use the subject plus have or has. Here, remember that if it is a third person singular, we use has. If it's a third person singular, we use has. Apart from the third person singular, first person singular plural, second person singular plural, and the third person plural, we use have. But for the third person singular, which is he, she, it, we use has. And the subject is the one doing or speaking. So we say for the positive, we have subject plus have or has plus the past participle of the verb. Subject plus has or have plus the past participle of the verb. Sometimes you see the third form of the verb, that is V3, the third form of the verb, which is the same as the past participle of the verb. So to form the positive, we have subject plus have or has plus the past participle. Subject plus has or have plus the past participle of the verb. To form the negative, we have subject plus has not or hasn't, or have not or hasn't, plus the past participle of the verb. Negative, we have subject plus has not or hasn't, or have not or haven't, plus the past participle of the verb. And finally, to get the question, we use has or have plus the subject plus the past participle of the verb. Has or have plus subject plus past participle of the verb. That is how we form the present perfect tense. That is how we form the present perfect tense. That is how we form the present perfect tense. So as a way of recap, we have talked about the present perfect tense. We have talked about the present perfect tense. So I briefly want to take us through again as a way of summarizing and recap. We say one, the present perfect tense is used to express things you have done in your life. So if you want to talk about things that you have done in your life, we use the present perfect tense to talk about them. Two, to express the number of times you have done something. So in talking about the number of times you have done something, we use the present perfect tense to talk about that. 3, to describe recently completed actions which are important now. To describe recently completed actions which are important now, we use the present perfect tense to talk about that. Next, we say to express situations that started in the past and are still true, we use the present perfect tense to talk about that. To express situations that started in the past and are still true, we use the present perfect tense. We again say to describe unfinished actions or situations, we use the present perfect tense. To describe unfinished actions or situations, we use the present perfect tense. Again, to express present results, we use the present perfect tense. To express present results, we use the present perfect tense. Then we look at the forms of the present perfect tense, where we say the positive form, it is subject plus has or have plus the past participle of the verb. For positive, subject plus has or have plus the past participle of the verb. And negative was a subject plus has not or hasn't, or have not or haven't, plus the past participle of the verb. And finally, we said for questions, we use have or has plus the subject plus the past participle of the verb. This brings us to the end of another wonderful session of Grammar Live with me, Alexander. Thank you so much for making the time to participate and join this wonderful session. And as always, I'd like to encourage you to keep sending in your comments, your questions, and your contributions. Remember that you should also continuously continue practicing in order to improve the usage of grammar. And as always, remember that with grammar, you will speak better. Till then, have a wonderful week and see you next time.